All right, everybody, welcome back to Swagelok Southeast Texas Talks. I am one of your hosts, Buster.caballero, along with my other host, Logan.boatright. It's a webcast for industry news, events, general items like that. So, Logan, welcome. Good to see you again.
Thanks, Buster. Good to see you too.
All right, man. What do we have on the show today?
So today we have a very special guest, Mr. Russell Smith. Russell is our technical support and training specialist, and that's a mouthful. You might be, we've already had the training specialist on. Well, Russell has a bit of a different role, and he's been with our company for a very long time, and he helps out our associates and our customers on a daily basis, and he's been doing so for 32 years. So I don't want to get into it too much. I'll let the man himself explain it. So welcome to the show, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, guys. Glad to be here. I've been enjoying these the talks every week. You guys are doing a great job. Yes, I've been with Swagelok 32 years total. The first 24, I was a technical advisor, just like you two guys. So definitely know what you guys go through on a daily basis. But the last few years, kind of specialized in just the technical support and training for our inside associates, not customers. So that's doing for about the last 8 years here in Swagelok, Southeast Texas.
Well, welcome to the show, Russell. I know you're one of these linchpins in our organization, and you, God, the things that you do for us, we're going to get into a little bit of it. Thanks for coming on the show, man. It's so good to see you.
So Russell, you touch base on a few things that you do, and I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into it. So what exactly do you do in your current role today?
Well, like the title says, it kind of falls into two categories. The one that uses most of my time is the technical support part of what the entire company. Now we've got lots of guys like you, Logan and Buster, that have tons of knowledge, and so we've got a bunch of technical advisors, customer service representatives, in some cases that have been around 10 or 12 with tons of knowledge. But I'm kind of the backup for all of you guys. So when you get a bid or an application and it's maybe something a little outside of what you've dealt with before, all that stuff gets funneled to me on a daily basis. That can cover a wide range of different types of questions. Things like, is this particular product going to work well in my specific application? Information that maybe is that we need, the customer needs, but it doesn't show up in the literature anywhere. In fact, we ran across one of those today, Logan, one you sent me, like tooth fit. You're going to have a very hard time finding that in any documentation. But again, it's the kind of thing that's been thrown at me often enough that it's right there at my finger. When we get a customer that needs a cross-reference for a part, they've got another manufacturer's part number, and they would prefer to buy the Swagelok version of it. Very frequently that gets sent to me to come up with our substitute for that other manufacturer's part. Another thing that happens pretty much on a daily basis is you guys use me as a sounding board, or okay, I think I've got this thing figured out, but is there something I'm missing? Is there maybe another way to approach this that that I haven't thought of yet? So I do that with you guys, even the engineering group. And again, because of the training and some of the experience with a lot of our folks, they're pretty sure they have the answer, but they might spend another couple of hours getting that extra little bit of confidence in the answer, or they shoot it to me and say, hey, am I on the right track here? So all kinds of different questions get thrown at me on a daily basis.
Well, so on that note, and you talk about the one today, and I wasn't even thinking about that one when we started the show, but in that case, you talked directly with the customer and gave them an answer. A lot of the times when I'm dealing with you're just making me look really good.
Yeah,
Just last
that's
week,
actually my job, Logan.
If there's a way to make these look any better, Russell, you do it.
we definitely need the help, that's for sure. But I mean, just last week, I was looking for a part number for I think it was a 1/4-inch VCO O-ring in Teflon, so not even the standard material, and that's not something that's in the catalog. And I might have been able to find it myself, but I was out seeing a customer, so I was able to message Russell real quick, and something that might have taken 30 minutes, an hour until I got around the computer. It took about a minute and a half to get that info back to our customer, and they were able to get the part in time. So I mean, we all have a ton of stories like that. Buster, I know you could rattle off a few off the top of your head, and that one's just something seemingly simple, for a part number that I just didn't know. And Russell, I don't know if you knew it off the top of your head, Russell, or you just had it right at your fingertips, but you definitely knew where to find it, and it definitely helped out a customer. So Russell does a lot of things behind the scenes that really help us out.
Yeah, and to go further with that, Russell, we have a lot of time. Our customers can call in either to us or to our CRT team, or and ask them like, hey, I'm looking for this part number, and kind of describe it and say it's a 1/2 inch tube fitting on one side and it's 3/8 NPT on the other. Can you help me with that? And that's simple. That's real easy to come up with. Now, when it comes to when we're talking with you, things aren't that simple. We're needing a little more specification on there. How is your role different from them? And I know we kind of have a little weak internet signal right now, so we may go in and out. We may ask you to repeat something if we didn't get it there. But how is your role different from what a typical CRT is?
Well, I don't actually enter orders and quotes into the system, and you don't want me doing that. So it more kind of the go-between. So again, the technical advisors and the customer service team, use me pretty much equally. Actually, probably the customer service team uses me more often than the technical advisors. And in those kind of cases, again, you mentioned being, things happening kind of behind the scenes. Most of those, you guys are never even get involved. So, one of your customers sent something in, the customer service team maybe is not sure what they're after, or doesn't have the correct part number, or do these components go together? And so that kind of thing happens even frequently when you guys are not even aware of it. But yeah, I am completely dedicated to the technical side of it, whether it's product application with the customers. So I'm not in, I don't do any kind of data entry. It's, it gets sent to me. Hopefully I can come up with a solution that goes back to the customer service team, and then they take it from there, and the quote or order then gets processed for the customer.
Awesome.
So you're just like strictly, we're going to get you the most technical knowledge about a component possible, right? Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, when it gets outside of your comfort zone, the customer service team comfort zone, or they're literally, they have no idea where to go looking for the information, or I have found some information, but I'm not sure exactly what this means or how it applies. That's where I get involved.
When you're playing football, you'll have an all-time quarterback. You're our all-time technical resource. That's what you do
Yes.
every day. So, and Russell, again, we talk all the time. I gave an example of time you helped me with part numbers, and I know you spend a lot of time end up cross-referencing part numbers, either for the technical advisors for our customers. How do you go about doing all that?
In some cases, there's manufacturers products that I see often enough that I don't know their part numbering system as well as I know our part numbering system, but I've at least got a good head start into where what the product is and some of the particulars, in connections, materials of construction, those kind of things. And of course, I've accumulated those frequent parts that we see, so that they're pretty much at my fingertips, so I can usually come up with those our part number for those products pretty quickly. In a lot of cases, it's things that I've never even run across, and so I'll be doing the same kind of thing anybody else would, Googling the manufacturer. A part number, usually you have to pare it down to kind of a part of the part number to be able to track it down. But again, it's something that I do so frequently that I typically can get to it a whole lot quicker than you guys could or the customer service team could.
And awesome. And another part of that too is, there are a lot of times when we'll get say we get a spec sheet from a customer, and it's very likely describing one of our products, sometimes directly, but it doesn't have the actual part number on there. And some of these spec sheets and the data sheets can be kind of confusing and a little intimidating. So I know that's one of the things that you deal with all the time too. So how does that look for you?
Yeah, and again, a big part of the reason it's a little easier for me is because I've seen so many of them over the years. You get to kind of understand the terminology that's used in a spec sheet as opposed to what you might hear in a conversation. There's again, because of the years of experience, you kind of know what things to focus on and what things are kind of irrelevant to the product we're talking about. A good example, one of the more detailed kind of specifications we'll see typically a relief valve. And so when I get a relief valve spec, I'm very narrowly looking for one particular thing, because our relief valves typically are proportional relief valves. And so the first thing I'm looking for on a relief valve spec, does it have to be a coded relief valve? Is it a safety relief valve? And so rather than spend 30 minutes trying to come up with end connections and setting and all those kind of things, I can very quickly, okay, unfortunately we can't help the customer with this one, or okay, we're in the ball game on this one. Now I can focus more on the specifics to come up with a part number that we can quote for the customer. So again, it's the kind of thing, if you're seeing them regularly, they become much easier to decipher. But again, the kind of thing I see on pretty much a daily basis is descriptions of a product and not a particular part number to work with.
Well, Russell, and to kind of touch on one of the things you said, about how fast you're able to get these things. You've been here 32 years. And for us right now, somebody just coming in, they look at our product binder and it's a textbook now. It used to be a binder when I started. Now it's a full textbook. It's heavy. That's the one that you got to be like, oh man, that one probably costs like $400 if you were a student going to Swagelok school. But for you, how big was what kind of product offering was it whenever you started, and through the years, how have you seen this grown in knowing what we carry? Because sometimes, we look in a catalog and we're like, hey, I don't even see this product in here or this part number or this manufacturer, and we reach out to you. How has the product line grown since then?
Grown tremendously, obviously. And not only is it a heavy bound book, it's very, very small print these days. The binder was probably half to a third of the size of the binder that we were using most recently up to a few years ago. Hoses would be a good example. We had one hose in our catalog back when I started. And today we've got about a 100-page catalog of nothing but hoses and flexible tubing.
Yeah.
The biggest part of the catalog.
Yeah. So yes, and that was a huge benefit to kind of get to where I am these days. Is, you know, I started with a much smaller group of products that I could really learn in detail, and then as new things were added over the years, you know, that's okay. You know, I'm just kind of expanding that base. So yeah, it definitely much easier back in the day when I was first getting started than somebody like you know, our newer technical advisors today. You know, we had maybe one or two products that had any kind of wiring, any electrical to it back then, something like a limit switch for a ball valve. And today we're doing smart products, and so yeah, we've come a long way from in the last, actually closer to 40 years, but definitely come a long way. So it is much harder for you guys to kind of be the experts than it was back in the day.
Thanks for making us feel better.
Yeah. Well, I got some reading to do. Oh. So Logan, I'm sorry, Russell, when our customers are coming to us, sometimes they're also not necessarily for a part number, but they're also coming out for us for a technical question on a product, also to troubleshoot it on that side. And what's your approach whenever a customer says, I got a valve, but it's not working in my application? How do you go about with those?
Well, that's where those 24 years as a technical advisor kind of comes in and helps. Same kind of thing you guys would do out in the field. You know, ask questions, get as much information about the system, the environment that the system sits in. Again, you guys know the kind of questions, and you know, trying to think up some examples of some stories as we were getting ready for this thing today. There was a situation, actually a couple that kind of fall into, well, one for sure. So we had an equipment manufacturer call in, and originally was on the phone with one of the customer service folks, and so occasionally those phone calls will get handed off to me, and they had actually, it was, I believe, 10 or 12 of our metering valves in an application, and they were having a problem with the stem tip. When, of course, in a metering valve, we've got a very, very long tapered stem tip on there, and the stem tip was breaking off in the valve body. And so, you know, start asking some questions about how they're using them, how they're closing the valves. You know, are they over tightening when they shut the valve off? And, you know, wasn't coming up with anything that really made much sense. And I had, with this particular product, I had not run into a situation where breaking the stem was something I'd ever seen before. And so the logical,
probably using channel locks on it.
Exactly. And so the only logical explanation, again, in a very brief conversation, was some kind of severe vibration would potentially be the cause of something like that. And the customer was not aware of any vibration, but you know, we ended the conversation there, and they were going to do a little more investigating on their end. And so follow-up discussion with the customer, turns out they were seeing some vibration, but it was an extremely high frequency, So not the kind of thing you would visually see or hear. So they were able to track that down, and they switched to another valve that was a little more robust and could handle a little more severe environment, but also were able to kind of dampen the vibration a little before it got to the valve. So that's the kind of example where, again, just the kind of questioning I would have done, back in the day if I was at the customer's site and we're trying to solve an issue. So again, that's where that experience out in the field, really helps in this current role.
No, that's a great story. Do you have any other stories or anything else you'd like to add?
Another one, again, that we had kind of talked about leading up to this, kind of falls into a different area. So we had one of the local refineries, the lab group, and there was a particular sample point out at the docks that they only needed to use this sample station for very specific fluids that were coming in from on a barge. So it was one that they didn't use very frequently. They may go months or a year or so without having to use that sample point. Well, they had a barge scheduled coming in. They determined they needed to replace the valving on this sample station, and it was some actuated ball valves, some three-way ball valves, and we were getting a long lead time on the replacement valves because it was not the standard version of the valve. It was actually kind of a high temperature version. And so again, well, we're kind of in a bind here. They're in a bind. We can't get the valves quick enough for the barge that's going to be here in a day or two, and they can't unload the barge until they're able to take those samples. So after some additional questioning, turns out that there was really no need for the special version of the valve. The standard version would work perfectly fine. And so with parts we had sitting on the shelf, they were able to bring the barge in the next day or two. They were up and running, ready to run the sample. So instead of the barge sitting there for the 2 or 3 or 4 weeks that it would have required to get the valves they were requesting, we were able to provide a solution, and they were able to keep things rolling with no interruptions.
See, that's
so again,
go ahead.
A different kind of a situation, but that's the kind of thing, again, that I see frequently. Okay, customer needs this particular part number, but they need it tomorrow or next week, and the lead time we're getting from Swagelok, it's not an off-the-shelf item, and so we've got an impasse here. Customers got to have it sooner, and there's no way we can get it sooner. And so, then I go into the same kind of mode there. Is there something else that will work as well, or at least well enough in this situation that we can get to the customer tomorrow or next week? So that's another thing that I'm dealing with frequently is finding something else that's going to solve the problem.
Yeah, and that's a great story, because we do run into that one a lot, where somebody has a more complicated version of something out in the field, where a standard version of that same thing might work out. But we get those the opposite direction too. I mean, it was just a couple weeks ago, you're helping me find a diagram of every single component in a Hastelloy C 1/2 inch 60 series ball valve.
Wow.
Something that's laid out in the catalog, something that we know we have at our fingertips, but something that was an emergency situation for a customer because they needed to rebuild the valve, but just wanted to replace the parts that they needed. So we had to get those part numbers out to them, and again, something that would have taken me hours to figure out. You had the diagram, were able to shoot it over to me, make me look good, and help the customer out. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of what I do is you know, I don't have all of these answers just sitting in my head, but again, because I'm doing it on a daily basis, I know where to go to look for information. So if it's not at my fingertips, it's something I can, again, you guys and most of the customer service team as well are completely capable of coming up with most of this information. But, you know, if customer service associate runs across something that's going to take them 2 or 3 hours to track down, as opposed to shooting it to me, so they can move on, and then, you know, they can process another 10 or 12 quotes or orders in those 2 or 3 hours, as opposed to working on that one question. So, you know, ultimately, the benefit, you know, I think I provide is saving time. You know, customers get answers quicker, and you guys, customer service team, are able to move on and keep other things rolling, as opposed to coming to a grinding halt until we can get an answer to that one particular thing.
Yeah, no, that's great, and that's a great way to close it out there, Russell. So, man, we really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm sure I'll be bugging you here in a few minutes about something new. So,
actually, I had something just come through this morning where I'm like, I need to ask Russell about that. So I'll be sending you an email also.
See, looky there.
I'll be here.
Will work. No, but seriously, thanks for coming on the show, Russell, and talking about what you do. And, you know, we wanted to have you on because you are a huge resource to customers, and sometimes it's directly, but a lot of times it's behind the scenes, you know, via either a customer service person or a technical advisor. So you're out there helping people, even if the people don't realize that, hey, that's Russell Smith that really helped me out there. So it's awesome to have you here. You're a big part of what we try to do at Swagelok Southeast Texas, and that's, you know, get stuff to our customers as quickly as possible. And a lot of times that stuff is, you know, parts, right? And that's where our warehouse comes in. But in Russell's case, it's information. And Russell's absolutely the guy that's there to help get information to our customers as quickly as possible. So if you have a question for Russell, type it in the comments. And if you have something else you'd like to see us discuss on the show, please let us know.
Yeah. Maybe our next episode will be Stump the Russell or Stump Mr. Smith. That sounds like a good one for me. But everybody, thanks for tuning in again. As always, we really appreciate your time. And with these shows, if you can, share them out with your friends, share them out with industry experts, share them out with coworkers in case there's something that you think might pertain to their applications. Go ahead and check us out on sset.swagelok.com. It's our website. We're also on all the major social media platforms from LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube also, which you're watching this on, and also Google Play for our podcast version of this. So if you want to listen to this later on, you don't have time to sit down and watch, you can take the show with you. Apple Podcasts, and we are on Spotify. So share, like, and let your friends know about us. And we will see y'all next Wednesday when we drop another one of these great episodes. So have a good day, and we'll see y'all later.
Y'all have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.